Hey, how you going? I'm Ryan. This is Ryan's Music Talk, and today I'm looking at the big dogs. Probably the most famous and commercially successful metal band of all time, Metallica. I wanted to do a Metallica ranking right from the start of the channel, but because 72 Seasons was so close, I thought it was best to wait for that to be released. So now that it's here, I'm pretty excited to get into this one. And I've decided, after I finish ranking the albums, I'm going to quickly run through my top 10 favourite Metallica songs as well. So that should be a lot of fun. And last thing, before we get started, I'll just say that this ranking won't be looking at live albums, cover albums, collaborations. So no S&M, no Garage Inc., no Lulu. And with that said, let's get into it. Number 11, Saint Anger. Fucking Saint Anger. Their 8th studio album, released in June 2003. When I went back to listen to it in preparation for this, I actually went in really open-minded. I thought, maybe it's not as bad as I remember it. There is a lot of people that defend it these days. But, if I'm being honest, it's fucking probably even worse than I remember. There's absolutely nothing I like about this album. It opens up with Frantic, and that's one of the worst songs I've heard by any band that I really love, and it just doesn't get any better from there. Fuck Saint Anger. Number 10, Reload, released in November 1997, and I have no idea what to say about this record, really. I'll admit that Fuel's a fun track, The Unforgiven 2 is not a bad song, but in all, it kind of feels like a pointless album. Number 9, Load, released in June 1996. The reason that Reload feels like a pointless album to me. I'm not even sure which album I actually like better. I've just ranked this higher because Until It Sleeps is my favourite track off either album. And I actually also really enjoy the almost country sounding number, Mama Said. Personally, I feel like they would have been better off if they took the better songs off Load and the better songs off Reload and made one sort of half-decent hard rock album instead of the two kind of crappy ones we got, really. Number 8, Death Magnetic. Their supposed comeback album, released in September 2008. While it is definitely a massive step up from the train wreck that was Saint Anger, and is their most thrash metal record in almost 2 decades at that point in time, I'm still really not a massive fan of it. I do really like the songs All Nightmare Long and The Day That Never Comes, but I think a lot of the other tracks can be a lot longer than they need to be at times, and it does make the album a bit of a drag to get through, really. Number 7, 72 Seasons, released this Friday in April 2023. I've been pretty excited about this. The 4 songs that have been released over the last couple of months, especially Luxa Turner and the title track 72 Seasons, I think they really shine and are big highlights on the album. I also really like Too Far Gone and Inamorata. I've no idea if I'm saying that right. Screaming Suicide and If Darkness Had a Sun. I didn't really actually like either of them when they were released prior to the album, but after a few more listens over time, they have started to grow on me. So I'm hoping that happens with the rest of this album, and maybe it'll end up higher in this ranking in the future. Number 6, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, released in November 2016. To be honest, I'd never really given this album much time. So when I went back to it to listen to it properly in preparation for this, I got a pretty nice surprise on how much I enjoyed it. I actually think it opens and closes with the 2 best songs on the album, with Hardwired and Spit Out the Bone respectively. But that isn't a criticism of the tracks in between, as Now That We're Dead, Moth into Flame and Here Comes Revenge are others that I do really enjoy. In all, I'm pretty comfortable to say this is Metallica's best album in the last 30 years. Number 5, Kill 'Em All, the debut album, released in July 1983. And it might be an unpopular opinion to have it ranked this low, but fuck it, it's my list. And that's certainly not me bagging the album, it more just shows how highly I think of the top four. There's actually a lot I love about this album. I sort of like the almost punky sound to it. I love the speed, it goes by at 100 miles an hour. And then, like, Hit the Lights, Motor Breath, Whiplash, Seek and Destroy, they're probably my favourite tracks, but all in all, it's actually a really thoroughly enjoyable album. Number 4, Metallica, aka The Black Album, released in August 1991. It's their most famous album, and it's the one that launched them into the mainstream. They sort of done away with the thrash metal sound on this and went for more of a straight heavy metal. And it's pretty incredible, really. There's classics galore on this, even if songs like Inner Sandman and Nothing Else Matters are so overplayed to the point that I honestly wouldn't care if I never heard either of those again. But then to make up for them being so overplayed to the point where they're almost fucking boring to me because I've heard them so many times, it's more than made up for by songs like Sad But True, The Unforgiven, Wherever I Roam, and Of Wolf and Man, just to name a few, really. Number 3, And Justice for All, released in September 1988. It's probably their most progressive album, and it's definitely their most thrash metal album until 2008's Death Magnetic. It's also their first album to feature Jason Newsted on bass after the tragic death of Cliff Burton 2 years prior, although it's pretty well documented that Newsted's presence is almost non-existent on the final product. Honestly, my only real complaint about this album is the weird chanting shit at the beginning of Frayed Ends of Sanity. But great tracks like Blackened and Justice for All and Harvester of Sorrow are all reasons to have this lifted all the way up to number 3 on my list. Number 2, Ride the Lightning, released in July 1984. And holy shit, this is a good record. There's been plenty of times where I've said this was my favourite Metallica album, and if I ever do this list again, it might come out on top. It really just depends on how I feel at the time. If pretty much any other band released an album this good, it'd be easily number 1 for them. It's much more polished than Kill 'Em All from the previous year, and almost flawless, really, in every way. With songs like For Whom the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black, Creeping Death, and then my favourite instrumental track by Metallica, Call of the Cthulhu. That's just a few highlights, really, of an album that is one big highlight all in itself. Number 1, Master of Puppets, released in March 1986. It's a damn near perfect album. It's getting close to 40 years later, and this record still sounds incredibly fresh. From the breakneck speed of Battery into the absolutely epic masterpiece of a title track, you might just have the best first 2 songs on any album I've ever heard in my entire life. Just like Ride the Lightning, this whole album really is one big highlight, with maybe just a couple more examples being Welcome Home Sanitarium and Leper Messiah. But honestly, trying to pick favourites on this is fucking nearly impossible. Alright, so now that I've finished my ranking of the albums, let's move on to my top 10 songs, shall we? At number 10, I've got Harvester of Sorrow from And Justice for All. At number 9, The Thing That Should Not Be from Master of Puppets. At number 8, Until It Sleeps from Load. Number 7, Sad But True from The Black Album. Number 6, For Whom the Bell Tolls from Ride the Lightning. Number 5, Wherever I May Roam from The Black Album. Number 4, Seek and Destroy from Kill 'Em All. Number 3, Master of Puppets from Master of Puppets. Number 2, Welcome Home Sanitarium from Master of Puppets. And number 1, Creeping Death from Ride the Lightning. So there's my lists. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree, or just give me your number one for both lists if you like. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to the page, and check out my Instagram at Ryan's Music Talk. And as always, I'll see you next time.